06, 04, decimals, percents, and fractions. All right, we're going to do a quick review here, and that's about rounding. So when you round to a particular place, look at the digit to the right of that place. If it's 5 or greater, you increase the digit in the place you are rounding to by 1. If it is less than 5, you leave the digit in the place you are rounding to unchanged. So let me do the first two, and then I'd like you to try the other three on your own. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth. Remember, the tenths place is one digit after the decimal point. So for number 1, we have 82 and 1/100th. So the tenths place is the 0. So you look to the right of the 0, and that's a 1. It's not greater than 5 or greater, so we leave the 0 alone, and we will end up with 82.0. And you would want to put the 0.0 since you're rounding to the tenths and you want to show that you did that. So for number 2, again, we're rounding to the tenths place, which is right after the decimal point. So which digit would that be? That would be the 6. You look to the right of the 6, and in this case, that's a 7. 7 is greater than 5, so we add 1 to the 6, and we'll get 4.7. Would you please try the next 3 on your own and try rounding those? You can pause the video, and then when you're ready, we'll check to see if you got them right. Okay, hopefully you tried the 3 problems on your own. Here we have 20 and 397 thousandths. The tenths place is still going to be right after the decimal point, so that's the 3. You look to the right, that's a 9, which is greater than 5, so we add 1 to the 3 and drop everything after it, and we get 20.4. Number 4, we have 399 and 95 hundredths. So 9 is in the tenths place. We look to the right. That's a 5. So we do round up. We add 1 to 9. That makes it 10. So then we're going to have to carry that over a bit. And we end up with 400.0. Since we added 1 and we had to keep carrying. Okay, number 5. We have 129 and 98 hundredths. The second 9 is in the tenths place, sorry. And we have an 8 to the right of that. So again, we're going to add 1 and we're going to have to carry. So we'll end up with 130.0. So that's a quick review of rounding. We will be using that for our lesson today. So please try to remember that. All right, so the objective of the main lesson is to convert fractions, decimals, and percents into each other. Now, a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. Therefore, you can write a percent as a fraction with a denominator of 100. To write a decimal as a percent, move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Next, to write a percent as a decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So you're going in reverse. To write a fraction as a percent, divide the numerator, that's the top number, by the denominator, which is the bottom number. Then convert the decimal quotient, that's your answer for a division problem, to a percent. So let's do a couple of examples here. Here we have the decimal 0 and 63 hundredths. I'm going to try to say them correctly. You don't have to say them correctly, but I'm trying to model them correctly. So here I have a decimal to a percent. So I need to take the decimal point and I move it 2 spots to the right. And that gives me 63%. So if I'm doing a decimal to a percent, I move to the right. If I'm doing a percent to a decimal, I'm going to go backwards and move to the left. and it's always 2 spots. Always 2. Doesn't matter how many digits there are, always 2. So first of all, I don't see a decimal point here. So if you don't see a decimal point, where's it at? It's always in the back. So now I take it and I move it 2 spots to the left. 1, 2. So to change a percent to a decimal, 29% would be 0.29, or 0 and 29 hundredths, if we're saying it correctly. So here I have 7 hundredths. I've got a decimal, so changing it to a percent, I'm moving it to the right. Always 2 spots, 1, 2. And that gives me 7%. Here I have 1.8%. Find the decimal, always 2 spots. I know I keep saying that, but people always mix that up and they don't always move it 2. It's always 2. 1, 2. And so I move it to there and I get 18 thousandths. One way that I learned to help remember which way to move, because when I was in 7th grade, I always got confused. Do I move it to the left or to the right? One way that I learned to do it was by doing it, looking at the alphabet and thinking of the alphabet. If you've got D and you're going to P, you're moving to the right. If you're at P and you go to D, you move to the left. So it's a little trick, but it has helped me. All right, so I'd like you to complete this table. I do want to mention that I don't mind if you use a calculator. So, because for the basic division parts, and it's really not going to help you with anything else. So calculators are okay in this case. So remember, a fraction means top divided by the bottom. So in this case, we have 7 divided by 8. So you can use a calculator for this. And I'm going to show you the work. So that's what you would get as a decimal. So 7/8 equals 0 and 875 thousandths. So there's my decimal. Now remember, to change it to a percent, we're going from decimal to percent, so that's D to P, so we're moving to the right, and it's always 2 spots, 1, 2, so this would be 87.5%, always 2 spots. So there's our first one. Here's 61%. Would you take a moment and would you convert it into a decimal and a fraction? Pause the video if you need to. Okay, so to change this into a decimal, first of all, you have to find the decimal point. If you don't see it, it's in the back. And we move 2 spots, 1, 2. And that gives us 0.61. Now, remember, there's basically 2 ways to think of this. You say, if you're doing it as a decimal, it's 61 hundredths. So that means 61 over 100. If you're thinking percent, remember percent means out of 100, which also means 61 over 100. You check to see, can you reduce it? Is there anything that'll go into 61 that'll go into 100? Nope. So we're done with that one. Would you pause the video, please, and would you try these 5 problems? All right. Hopefully you've tried the problems. If you don't try them, then you're not doing the whole assignment the way you should be. All right, so we have a fraction that is 4/5. Remember, it's the top divided by the bottom, so 4 divided by 5, and I'm okay with you using a calculator because you have to still know what to do. So 4 divided by 5 is going to give you 0.8 as a decimal, and then as a percent, we get moved 2 spots to the right, which gives us 80%. Okay, 16%. Move the decimal 2 places to the left. And then 16 over 100. Is there anything that'll go into 16 that'll go into 100? You could divide both of them by 4, and that would give you 4 over 25. You could also divide by 2, but then you'd have to divide by 2 again. Okay, 9 thousandths. So we could put 9 over 1,000. Is there anything that'll go into 9 that'll go into 1,000? Nope. And then for a percent, we're going to move 2 spots to the right, which gives us 0.9%. Another fraction, top divided by the bottom. So 3 divided by 10 is 0.3. Move the decimal over 2 spots to the right. I don't have 2 spots, so that means I need to add a 0, which will give me 30%. Remember, it's always 2 spots. Some people will just put 3%, and that's not correct. Okay, so a percent as a decimal, 2 spots to the left will give us 2.7. And then as a fraction, you have 2 7/10. These are ones I think you should memorize because you see them a lot in everyday life. So being able to convert them will make life a little easier for you. So 1/4. Do you know what 1/4 is as a decimal? It's 0.25, and that means it's 25%. 1/3. If you divide the top by the bottom, you're going to get a repeating decimal, 0.33333, which I would like you to write as 33 1/3%. You're going to see that a lot in advertisements and stuff. 1/3 off or 33 1/3% off. 1/2, we should all know 1/2 is 0.5, which is 50%. You'll also see that all the time. 2/3, 0.666666. As a percent, you would want to write that as 66 2/3%. And then 3/4. 3/4 of a dollar is 75 cents. And that would be 75%. So these are 5 that I think you should memorize because, and there's others that are probably also you should memorize, but these are the most common. Okay, so if we get a repeating decimal, kind of like what you saw with the 0.6666 and 0.3333, here's a fraction, 1 divided by 6. If you use your calculator, you're going to get something like this. It's going to be 0.16666. So as a decimal, we do 0.1, and then we put the 6. And since the 6 keeps repeating, we put a bar on top of that. It's called a repetend bar, and that shows us that the 6 keeps repeating. We only put the bar over the 6 because the 6 is the only thing repeating. So then we move the decimal 2 spots to the right, and we get 16.6 with a bar over it. That's one of those ones I really don't like. I would prefer that you round it. Or you could also put 16 2/3%. Okay, would you complete this table, please? Okay, if you haven't paused the video, pause it, and then I'm going to get going here. So as a decimal, this would be 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. We put the 4 in front. As a percent, always 2 spots to the right. So that would be 460%. I took one of the problems out. That's why there's that blank spot. 7 1/8. 1 divided by 8 is 0.125. We put the 7 in front. Always move the decimal point 2 spots, which would give us 712. No, sorry, let me try that again. 712 and 5.5%. That's not really sounding good. 0.3 with a bar over it. Remember, this is one of those ones you should have memorized. As a fraction, it's 1/3. And then as a percent, I don't want 33.3 with a bar over it. I want you to remember it's 33 1/3%. Okay, that's it. Don't forget, you need to write a summary. What are some of the key things that you need to know in order to do these problems? Don't tell me you learned about fractions, decimals, and percents. What did you learn about the conversion? Also get your parent signature, and that should do it for today. Thank you.